Well, hello and welcome to the African News on Voice of the People Television. I am David Edwin. Before we begin the news, we would urge you to kindly visit our website, www.vop.ng, for fresh and trending stories. We begin the African News from Ivory Coast, where Ivory Coast opposition leader and former Credit Suisse chief, Thiam, has been excluded from the country's final list of presidential candidates, rendering him ineligible to contest in October's election, a party official did say on Wednesday. Thiam told Newsman in April he would not drop his presidential bid despite a court ruling that his name be struck from the list due to his French nationality at the time of registration. Reports say the Electoral Commission's decision risks reviving tensions in the country that emerged from more than a decade of civil war in the early 2000s. The conflict was partially fueled by disputes over nationality and electoral eligibility. 62-year-old Thiam was elected as leader of the PDCI, the main opposition party in the world's top cocoa producing nation, in December 2023. Meanwhile, a total of 188 United Nations member states voted to elect Bahrain, Colombia, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Latvia, and Liberia to serve as non-permanent members of the UN Security Council. The vote only required one round of balloting. Representatives of the five nations will begin serving on the UN body responsible for maintaining international peace and security in January 2026 and continue their work through the end of 2027. In the African and Asia Pacific group, Bahrain received 186 votes, the Democratic Republic of Congo gathered 183 votes, and Liberia received 181 votes, with one country abstaining. Meanwhile, a top official in one of South Africa's biggest political parties has been sacked after he visited a controversial Malawian pastor in April. Floyd Shimvabu has been removed as Secretary General of the Mtoto Mwize, that's the MK party, barely 6 months into the job after he attended an Easter service at self-proclaimed pastor Shepherd Bushiri's church. Mr. Bushiri from Malawi was one of Southern Africa's best-known preachers when he was arrested and charged with fraud in South Africa in 2020. After being released on bail, he managed to flee to his home country in unclear circumstances. South Africa has been trying to extradite him ever since then. Mr. Bushiri denies any wrongdoing. The MK party, which was founded by former President Jacob Zuma, said in a press conference on Wednesday that Shivambu's removal came after his actions were found to be against the spirit and precepts of the MK party's constitutions. And now we'll go straight to Kenya, where Kilifi North Member of Parliament Owen Baya has withdrawn the bill seeking to delist Muguga from the scheduled crops category under the law. The anti-Muguka bill, tabled by Baya in Parliament last month, posed a potential risk to the farmers, proposing a change to the Crop Act, differentiating the stimulant from Mira. In a statement on Wednesday, Deputy President Kithure Kindiki said the decision was arrived at after he met Baya at his Karen residence. According to the proposed law, the principal object of the bill is to amend the Crops Act, Cap 318, to differentiate Mugukas from Myra and therefore expressly exclude Muguka from being a scheduled crop. All scheduled crops under the Act receive government attention through mandatory certification, national market structures, research, and extension services. The scheduled crops were also eligible for state subsidies. The bill was tabled after prolonged tension between the coastal and eastern counties over the Muguka trade. Still in Kenya, Kenya's free speech advocates and lawyers have condemned the persecution of the author of an unauthorized biography of Kenyan President William Ruto's daughter. Charlene Ruto accused Webster Ochora Elijah of misusing her name by writing the book without first seeking permission from her. On Tuesday, the author was arrested and charged with impersonation over the book titled Beyond the Name, Charlene Ruto and the Youth Uprising. He pleaded not guilty and was released on bail. Ms. Ruto told journalists that she had reported the matter to the police and was following legal procedures. She is listed as the complainant on the charge sheet. The charge alleges that the accused published the book on or before May the 22nd alongside others who are set to be charged with intention to defraud. The president's daughter has not complained about the contents of the book, just that it was written without her permission. But critics say this is not illegal. Moving on, the International Day of United Nations Peacekeepers kicked off in southern Sudan's western equatorial state, opening with a friendly football match between peacekeepers and local women. The event was aimed at raising awareness of the need to de-escalate tension and promote peace in the conflict-prone area. Western Equatorial has been hard hit by years of military confrontations and intercommunal conflicts. The peacekeepers are part of the UN mission in South Sudan, an initiative aimed at preventing the country from relapsing into civil war and building sustainable peace so that free, fair, and credible elections take place there. More than 18,000 peacekeepers from 75 countries serve with the mission. Moving on, 5 persons have been killed in an attack on a humanitarian aid convoy in Sudan. The attack happened near the town of El Koma in North Darfur province as the convoy was trying to reach El Fasher city. Speaking to newsmen, Stephen Jumarik, the spokesperson for UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, described the incident as a horrendous act of violence. The UN has not said who was responsible. Sudan's warring parties are trading blame. Sudan was plunged into a civil war more than 2 years ago when tensions between the army and rival paramilitary exploded with street battles across the country. The war, which has displaced millions of people, has been marked by atrocities including mass rape and ethnically motivated violence, particularly in western region of Darfur. Well, joining us now to make sense of these stories and more is Barrister Darlington Agumo, who is Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst and a legal professional. Also joining us, before I bring in Barrister, also joining us all the way from Kenya is Mr. Martin Irere Njue, who is also an insurance and banking consultant. He is also the CEO and founder of Wealthgate Insurance Agency in Kenya. Gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, David. How are you?
I'm fine, very well. Thank you, Barrister. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
All right, Mr. Martins, can you hear me? A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you too.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take a very quick break right now. When we return, we will get into the analysis segment just about now. Let's take that break quickly.
On the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are Voice of the People TV. Also follow us on all our social media platforms. We are at VOP TV Live. Visit our website www.vop.ng for fresh and trending news. Also watch us live on SLTV channel 264. VOP TV, Voice of the People Television.
We are the station that brings you stories from the people's perspective.
We'll let your voice be heard. On Political Lens, we'll bring you deeper insights into happenings within the polity.
We create equality of representative opinion and fairness in politics, economic and diverse conversations.
Here we bring you breaking news, fresh perspectives, as well as fact.
Well, glad to have you back. Before we went on that break, I did say we're going to go straight to the analysis segment when we return from the break. Well, again, joining us all the way from Kenya, like I did mention earlier, is Mr. Martins Njoy Irere. I hope I pronounced that well. I'm talking about Mr. Martins Irere Njoy from Kenya. Once again, a very, very good afternoon to you, Mr. Martins.
A very good afternoon to you, Mr. David.
All right, glad to have you on the analysis segment of African News. Well, I'm going to start with my studio guest here, and that is Barrister Darlington Agumo. Interestingly, Barrister, the situation in Sudan is really, really escalating by the day, and as it stands, 5 humanitarian workers have been killed again in Sudan after, of course, an attack on the aid convoy that was going to supply aid to the people. This is becoming so very unbelievable within that war-torn country of Sudan. First, what is your position with all of these attacks on people who are practically wanting to help the people, even in this kind of situation?
Under the Geneva Convention, there are rules of engagement, even while the war is raging. There are red lines you should not cross, and that is humanitarian aid. You don't disrupt it. You don't kill aid workers.
Okay.
So those who are involved in this type of behavior, you can be sure that at the end of the day, ICC will call on them. They must answer, because this is not a crime against humanity.
Against humanity.
Yes, it's no longer about war. It's a crime against humanity. There's no other way to describe it. So I don't want at the end of the day sentiment will come in. These people must answer for what they are doing.
You think in any way there would be sentiments coming into this conversation?
There must. There shall be. Yeah, there will. Because by the time this war is over, they will start trading blame. No, it is the other party. No, it is the other party. No, it is this person. No. Let them identify who is behind all these unprovoked attack on humanitarian aid workers. They should identify them and document them, so that at the end of the day, these people must go and answer for their charges. So
in other words, there should be proper documentation of whoever is carrying out all of these.
Exactly. So since they have refused to learn a lesson, that's the only way to teach these people a lesson.
Well, Barrister, it's been going on for over 2 years. I mean, this war in Sudan has been going on for over 2 years. Isn't this about time that the warring factions shelve their sword and think about the growth of the country and not just the people alone?
They will get tired. You see this unwarranted war, they will get tired. At the end of the day, they will be begging for peace. Because I know very soon, their war chest will deplete. Both themselves and the sponsor, they will get tired, because no war lasts forever. No war. From history, no war lasts forever. At a point, they will get tired, both sides. I've told you this several times. And that's how it's going to end. So let them continue to flex their muscles. By the time ICC start calling on them, especially the leaders of this war, because they have leadership controlling the foot soldiers in the battlefield. By the time their names are called out, they will know that the game is up. That's the truth.
And this is really, really disheartening, I must say. But then, individuals who are carrying out aid to the people in a time of unpleasant moments in Sudan are being attacked. Mr. Martins, I'm going to come to you. The economy of Sudan is not even showing any sign of growth. I mean, you would not expect any growth in that economy as it stands. But I want to come to you on this. What do you think in the near days can be done for the warring factions in Sudan to maybe think of peace and find a lasting solution to developing Sudan? Because it's been 2 years since this civil war has been going on.
Thank you, Mr. Edwin, and the immediate person that has spoken before me.
Barrister Darlington.
Yeah, it is worrying. Yeah, it is worrying on what is happening on Sudan. Basically, as I told you last time, that these are some of African countries that are run governed by state elite capture. And you can see the war is escalating every time and then. And one of the things is that what is happening in Sudan is not different on what is happening in DRC Congo. Basically, because you understand it, Sudan is very rich in minerals like oil. And now most of the people who have owned the economy are this elite state capture. So, and this elite capture, they are trading fear to the civilian. And hence, if this country is stable, it means these people, they cannot run their system. So that's why you can see every day, every time, there is this arising issue on a attack, killing of civilians. But to my thinking, since they have come to this issue of attacking the humanitarian workers, I think UN will come up with a way of confronting this issue. Since this now it has become a threat to humanitarian workers. So to my view, this is something that is escalated through political and the state elite capture, and they are one that don't want this country to have stability, to have stable democracy, to have peace, so that they can run their system. That's my view.
All right, now I'm going to come to the studio again before I come to you on the Kenyan president's daughter. Barrister, Mr. Martins did say something a couple of seconds ago. He said it's as a result of state elite capture. Do you share this sentiment as well? And then if that is the situation, how can the people themselves manage to get out of this, if they can?
Look, it's all about ego. Who will be in charge? It is an ego war.
At the expense of the lives of people.
The president and the vice does not agree on who should be in charge of things in Sudan. That's the problem. It's an ego thing. Okay, the mineral resources they want to control, are they controlling it now? They can't do much in a state of war and insecurity. They can't. Rather, Western powers are frittering away their resources ignorantly. You see why I call it a foolish war? Because you want to control things that you cannot even control. You allow foreigners to come and plunder your economy. As I talk to you now, those resources that they have there are being used to supply them weapons. That's the truth. So they are not even enjoying it. They can't. Nobody enjoys anything in a state of war and anarchy. Nobody. That is why their foolishness should be called to order. I don't know where their senses are. You allow foreigners to use your resources to supply you arms to kill yourselves. Can you imagine? Who is dying there? Is it not Sudanese? Which resources are we talking about? Is it not Sudanese resources?
Right.
Good. Whose structures are being destroyed? Sudanese structures. You can see, by the time they settle down now, or maybe one person die or not, or something happen, they will now come for conference and roundtable discussion to end the war. By that time, a lot of damage would have been done. As I talk to you today, Sudan is the worst humanitarian crisis in the whole world. 13 million people displaced.
Right, in over 2 years.
You can imagine the need of these people. I mean, they have no hope of the next day. What other crisis is worse than that?
Barrister, since the war began in 2023, the nation's economy, I'm talking about Sudan, has experienced a severe downturn to the point of a GDP contraction. Now, in 2023 alone, about 37.5% approximately was how the GDP fell. 37.5%. Barrister, it keeps going down the drain. In 2024, 18.3%. So the contraction has been really, really going terrible within that country. The war of pride, Barrister. Isn't this about time that they think about the people and even the nation?
I told you here that the worst thing God created for us are foolish leaders, wicked leaders with no heart. They don't have a heart in their soul. Leaders without wisdom, none of them. Because if you ask those people now why they are fighting and killing themselves, you cannot even find any tangible reason. I told you here that none of them can make any progress with the war they have created to control resources. Are they controlling it now? You don't reel out their GDP and all the rest. They can't make progress under this anarchy. They can't. And they cannot sit down and ask themselves, what exactly is going on here? Whom are we fighting for? These are not foreigners. They are among themselves. Because you want to be in charge. As if when you die, you will carry these things to heaven. They didn't learn a lesson from Mobutu Sese Seko. They didn't learn from Idi Amin of Uganda. They didn't learn from Emperor Bokassa of Central African Republic.
Right.
I'm talking of worst dictators we have had in Africa who claim to be God. And when they died, some of them died in exile in a miserable way. In a miserable way. They died in exile. And these two foolish men who claim to be leaders fighting and killing each other because they want to control what?
Oh, well, Barrister, it's quite an unfortunate situation. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Martins. Interestingly, I wanted to go, well, I'm still going to go into that particular story. Inflation averaged 245.3% in 2023, driven by monetization of the fiscal deficit in Sudan. Now, you are in the insurance sector. If inflation should go as high as 245.3% in 2023, you want to attribute that to the war happening in Sudan. But then, looking at the future of that country, for the past 2 years, this war has been going on. Do you think there would be a projection of further increase of this inflation? Or would there be some miracle happening in the near days?
War in a country, it contributed to much of the issue affecting the current state of affairs, which was one being economy, one being the global market, whereby now inflation will take place because that country is in a satiable condition. And it ends in this kind of a war. It escalated to an extent whereby people become poor, people become miserable, and all kind of crime are expected. So in such situation, we expect there must be inflation and there must be economic sabotage. That's the view I have in regard to what is happening in DRC Congo. And sorry to say what is happening in Sudan.
Right.
Secondly, on the same case, this war is escalating because this elite state capture, they have resource even even overseas. I can say even in Grombo, they have resource. So what they want is to suppress the people through war, so that these people cannot do business, cannot cope with their way of life. So that's how it happened for them to oppress them, and so that they can control the system, which there is no one that will be able to kick them out of that system, because people have become more oppressed.
Okay. Well,
That's
again,
my case. Yes.
again, a lot of persons have really, really been talking about the situation in Sudan, and of course, the inflation rising so hard in that country. But then again, let's get to another conversation that, of course, is of interest to you and, of course, your citizens in Kenya. Interestingly, Kenyan author is being prosecuted for writing a book about the president's daughter. I'm going to ask, first off, what's your view about, first, his arrest and then being taken to court to want to be prosecuted as a result of these kind of acts? What's your take, first off? I'm going to start with that question.
I think in this regard, whereby the right has been prosecuted, one thing is that there is a bill that was passed about exposing the credential or personality of a person. And in this case, what has happened, there might be an agreement before publishing the book. And hence, after this book has been edited or has been publicized, that when they imagine this content has come into existence.
Okay.
And in this area, we can see that there must be a verbal agreement that has not materialized. And the other thing, if this has not materialized, it shows that there is one person that has taken another avenue of litigation. And whereby there is a bill that is protecting that, where you publicize the information of a person without agreeing. And agreeing, it means it should not be verbal, but it has to be documented so that it can bind the two parties.
All right.
So
now,
in this case,
yes.
In this case, there is a bill that protects someone when his information has been publicized without his consent. And in this case, it means that the two maybe they have a verbal agreement that has, at the end, has not materialized. And at the other end, if there is a litigation, there is Data Protection Act that this daughter of president has taken root into.
Okay, now there is a conversation surrounding the fact that one of the reasons why this particular man, I'm talking about Webster Ochora Elijah, the one who, of course, wrote the book, one of the reasons he had given for writing this book is the fact that there's been the conversation of the office of the first daughter in the cabinet of President William Ruto. Now, according to Kenyan law, that is very much available all across the internet and all that, there is nothing. The Kenyan laws does not identify or recognize such an office. Office of the first daughter, is that not worthy enough to want to ask for questions by people who are supposed to?
I like to understand that this young man has publicized this book in a time where we have political hiccups, political turmoils, and he has wrote a book with the interest of a person at the end of the governance, or at the end. That is now the daughter of a president. Now, in such occurrence, that book, through the content in that book, in such a time it can bring critics in the political stage, which is now lending to a threat in a certain dimension. That's why you can see this young man has wrote a book in time of political turmoil, political unacceptable situation. So in such occurrence, you will find that this book has interest in the political stage, which might bring some critics and what have you, and now exposing more details which will be addressed to the person of the interest, which is the president. So that information is so critical, and I think that's why from the advisors it has taken that litigation kind of disconnect in such.
Okay, now I'm going to come to the studio. Barrister, this is a conversation that a lot of persons you might also be familiar with some things happening across Africa and even in Nigeria. Interestingly, Barrister, while not holding an official government position, the daughter of the president, I'm talking about Charlene Ruto, has participated in various public events, including meetings with county assemblies and, of course, international visits, leading to perceptions of political involvement. This person, handling the office of the daughter of the president, is not in any law in the country. With these kind of involvements in, of course, the political space, the questions that have bothered the mind of most Africans, and even Kenya, of course, I'm going to ask you, Mr. Martins, is who now funds and where does the fund comes from to fund that office and all of these trips?
You see, the author made a mistake.
How?
The easiest way to challenge such a thing is to go to court. The man or his fellow, traveler should have taken that office to court and challenge the authenticity of that office. That's what they should have done. Because if you now start writing a book without authorization of somebody, that means you are committing an offense on his own.
Okay, so you cannot take a wrong to correct a wrong.
I am telling you, the easiest part is to go to court and challenge because it involves the governance.
But Barrister, another question that comes to mind is, if you say he should have gone to court, the possibility of asking this question, what has the parliament in Kenya been doing?
It doesn't matter.
To have kept quiet about these offices for a while.
Yes, that is why you are there. If you are a human rights activist, you are the watchdog of the society. You don't leave everything to politicians who are looking for where their bread is buttered. Members of parliament, they wouldn't want to ruffle feathers because they are in government. It is left for you to say this thing is wrong. It is not our culture, it's not in our constitution. You challenge it in court. That's what you should have done instead of writing a book that will now incriminate you because the lady said, I did not authorize this book.
Right.
I did not. Before you can write autobiography of anybody, that person must get your nod. Is that not true? That's the first thing. So this lady did not get any nod. Or else, you would have even written an article to criticize that office. All those things would have given you protection.
Okay.
It would have been your defense. But for you to write a book in the name of somebody without that person authorizing it, it is wrong.
Okay. Well, I'm going to come to you, Mr. Martins.
If it is a book that has been written and you want to take excerpts from that book, yes, you must acknowledge the author, or else you will be accused of plagiarism.
Right, right.
Intellectual theft is a crime on its own because that is intellectual property of somebody. Under intellectual law, you don't take somebody's work without acknowledgement.
Okay. Well, again, I'm going to come to you, Mr. Martins, while we co-stom on the analysis segment. The part where I asked Barrister earlier, of course, it's been established such a book being written without the authorization of the president's daughter, I'm talking about Charlene Ruto, is actually wrong. But let's look at the part of the office of the daughter of the president. The parliament has not spoken against it. One question comes to mind, just like I asked Barrister earlier. Who funds and where does the fund for all of our activities and all of the places she's gone, where does all of those funds come from? You're in Kenya, so you can tell better.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I want you to understand that when you are a president or you are leading a republic, you have all the audacity and all powers are in your hands. So it means that you can create even the two offices. Then until when it goes to the parliament, whereby it can be criticized, or it can go the litigation process and the decision making. That where now the discourse take the place. But in this case, that office, even though there is no such office of a vast daughter of the republic, the office of his father, or who is now the president, that office has power to protect even that child from any Data Protection Act. You know, here in Kenya we have a bill about Data Protection Act.
Okay.
You cannot publicize my details or my data or any personal information without my consent.
Right.
Hence, it will lead you into a prosecution. And that is the case that has happened. And that's why I told you maybe these people from the beginning, they end a verbal engagement or agreement, but at the end, it did not materialize. Hence, one party, so he has to go to court. Or rather, from the advisory, from the office of the senior government, and you see them book as critics. And I've advised you that, or rather, I've told you that this is a time of politics in Kenya, because in 2 years, 1 year and some months, we are coming to election, whereby the critics in this book can be a threat to a party from what is the ongoing concern. So that's what my
All right. Well,
my comment is.
Okay. Well, Barrister, wanted to say something.
Yes, you see, there are two things here. It is different for you to mention the first daughter, the first son, and all that. But when you create an office that is unconstitutional and unrecognized for that office, and you start allocating funds for that office, it is illegal. That is what I think that these people should have done. Go to court and challenge it. You can say, yes, like you say, office of the first lady. In Nigeria, it is not recognized.
Right.
All these first dog, first cockroach, first pussycat. These things are just bare conventions and, for want of what to do. It's not that it is authorized or legal. That is why you cannot see it in Nigeria, whereby you have office of the first son, office of the first daughter. But you can mention it in the passing, in the press and all that. In real life, it does not exist.
But there are fund allocations going to the
Yeah, that is where you should challenge it. Like we have done in Nigeria here. You challenge it. Where is this particular person getting the fund and be acting as the first son, first daughter and all that? By the way, if you're a first son and first daughter, what are you supposed to be doing? Like if you have Minister of Agriculture, you have to look into agricultural issues. Now, if you are the first son or first daughter, are you going to be taking care of first sons and first daughters in Nigeria? Is that a portfolio? These are things you should challenge in court.
Oh, well.
Because I know the court will shut it down. It does not exist. It can never exist because it has no value to the country. Office of the first son, office of the first daughter. What are you supposed to be doing that will add value to the economy of that country? Nothing. Nothing.
Quite unfortunate, Barrister. But because of our time, this is where we have to draw anchor on the analysis segment. I'd like to take a final concluding thought from you, Mr. Martins, if you have any concluding thoughts on this conversation that we've had earlier. In 30 seconds.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this platform on addressing the emerging issue in Africa. And one thing is that when we as the public or citizen of our country or Africa, we allow this elite state capture to take place, we gonna not have a future as the youth, and there will be no dignity in the ruling of our governance. So I will like to tell the citizen or the republic at large and Africa at large that any threat to democracy, it should be fought tooth and nail. So that if you keep quiet and see any area of any ruling happening in our country, we're gonna lose the future of our country and Africa at large.
Oh, well.
If we allow this elite capture to take root, it means it will eat across the globe, the East Africa, West, and the whole part of Africa. We found ourselves in a fix, and there is no one to help us. So let's fight this kind of unruling and this kind of state elite capture. We fight it tooth and nail so that we can have dignity and hygiene in our democracy.
All right.
Thank you so much.
What a great way to anchor this particular conversation. Thank you so very much. Well, we've been talking with Barrister Darlington Agumo, who is Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst and, of course, a legal practitioner. And also, all the way from Kenya, we were talking also with Mr. Martins Irere Njwe, who is also an insurance and banking consultant. He's the CEO and founder of WorldGate Insurance Agency in Kenya. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you so very much. Well, we'll take a quick break now. When we return, the rest of the news, and I'm talking business and sports, will be up next after this break. Do stay with us. Glad to have you back. It is still the African News right here on Voice of the People Television. Now to some business stories. South African business activities grew at its fastest pace in 4 years in May, driven by a robust increase in private sector output and improved customer confidence, a survey has showed on Wednesday. The S&P Global South Africa Purchasing Managers Index, that's the PMI, rose to 50.8 in May from 50.0 in April, indicating growth for the first time since November 2024. A PMI reading above 50 indicates growth, while below 50 points to a contraction. The index showed a marginal improvement in the private sector's health and companies reporting increase in output, new orders, and inventories. The output sub-index reached its highest level since May 2021 as firms sought to recover from a first quarter downturn buoyed by new projects and rising domestic orders. Despite the positive domestic look, export orders continue to decline, albeit at a slower pace than in April, partly due to U.S. tariffs impacting foreign trade. However, improved supply chain conditions, including shorter delivery times, enabled firms to boost inventories at the fastest rate in a year. Still talking business, the price of key staple food crops in Uganda, including sweet potatoes and cabbage, rose notably, despite overall monthly inflation remaining stable at 0.5%, according to the Ugandan Bureau of Statistics. The latest consumer price index data indicates that the price increases were primarily driven by seasonal shifts and supply constraints. Sweet potatoes and cabbage experienced some of the sharpest price hikes during the month. Samuel Echoko, UBO's head of macroeconomic statistics, attributed the rise in prices to recent weather changes that disrupted harvest cycles. And to wrap up the African news, we'll go straight talking some sports. Midfielder Njambolo Bloom will return to his parent club, St. Louis City SC, after a loan spell at Kaizer Chiefs, with whom he won a Nedbank Cup gold medal. However, his future role remains unclear. Bloom had rejoined Amakosi at the beginning of September 2024 under an agreement to spend a season at his boyhood club in the Betway Premiership. After donning the Chiefs jersey for the second time in his career, the Dobsonville-born player departed Amakosi in pursuit of a different challenge in the Major League Soccer. However, his future in the MLS reportedly remains unclear. According to reports, St. Louis City must now decide whether to use their newly available international slot to keep the 25-year-old midfielder, even as they weigh up another loan move for a possible buyout. The Glamour Boys recently also announced that under-15 talent Chukwudi Luvono will be joining the Charlotte Academy in the United States. In a statement, the club said Chukwudi has officially joined Charlotte Academy in the United States, representing Charlotte Academy's under-16 and under-17 in the MLS nest. Urging him to keep the flag flying, the club added that Chukwudi continues to make them proud on international soil. Still talking sports, World Boxing has apologized after Olympic champion Imane Khalif was named in the governing body's announcement of mandatory sex testing. It released its new policy last week and singled out the Algerian, saying Khalif will not be allowed to compete in the female category of its competitions until the fighter undergoes the test. But World Boxing has told newsmen its president Boris van der Vorst has since written to the Algerian Boxing Federation to apologize after acknowledging that the athlete's privacy should have been protected. 26-year-old Khalif won women's welterweight gold at the Paris Olympic last year amid a row over gender eligibility. Khalif, along with Taiwanese fighter Lin Yongting, was disqualified from the 2023 World Championships by previous world governing body, the International Boxing Association, that's the IBA, for allegedly failing gender eligibility tests. And with that sports story, we've come to the end of African News right here on Voice of the People Television. Do also subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we are at Voice of the People TV. And on all other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. Thank you so very much for being a part of this broadcast. I am David Edwin. Do have a good afternoon.